There's a war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. A war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. Well, war from Boteca. Well, war from Boteca. Well.
What is your unique idea? 500 words maximum. My unique idea is to use civic and voter education to combat corruption in our public service delivery systems in Eswatini. The idea necessitates a repeal of Section 87, subsection 5 of our national constitution, which commands all aspiring politicians intending to participate in the national election to refrain from campaigning until the secondary national election. This means that an unknown candidate is prevented from spreading awareness about their areas of advocacy and activism ahead of and during the primary election. It is my opinion that policy formulation and implementation in the health ministry specifically are an area that needs emergency intervention from Swati citizens. In my personal and observed experiences, medical malpractice in the specific form of violating the human right to exercise agency over our bodies or the bodies of our children poses a crippling danger on our lives and liberty.
With the angels to take.
What subject area does this idea explore? This idea explores the intersection of human rights law and medical practice.
There's a war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. A war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara.
What do you hope to gain through the TEDx experience? 200 words maximum. Through the TEDx experience, I can create an archive of my idea and research, even if they are not yet deemed actionable. This way, my idea can be easily made available for dissemination when the socio-political climate allows it. At the same time, the broadcasting of my idea on the TEDx platform can otherwise spur the climate to become one that is receptive to my idea sooner rather than later.
Oh, we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara.
Tell us about yourself. What makes you the right person to share this idea? 500 words maximum. As a high school leaver, I was caught in a political crossfire between my mother and the head of state in my country. A clash of wills which my mother used to canvass for financial assistance to fund my education. I experienced unplanned pregnancy shortly after sitting for my final exam, having been placed on a waiting list by Mercersburg in Massachusetts and granted full admission by the United World College Organization on the strength of my mock exam results and performance in the respective interviewing processes of these college preparatory schools. My mother therefore coerced me into aborting my pregnancy, despite my plans to keep my baby and attend the local national university, which was going to open for new admissions in 9 months, incidentally. Still, my mother violated my agency over my sexual and reproductive health rights by rejecting my plan to salvage both my motherhood and my education. This was despite my expressed concern that my spiritual and mental health would be harmed by the abortion of a baby I desired to keep. Whereas I'd been a competent student throughout my schooling until this point, my academic performance unfortunately suffered as I succumbed to mental illness in my second year of the International Baccalaureate Diploma program at the Indian United World College, where I had obtained a full scholarship. rather than take accountability for the undesirable outcomes of her decision to end my pregnancy at 5 months, my mother has preferred to use violent repression, gaslighting tactics, and slander to silence me about my experience. This included forced psychiatric detention in 2014, during which I met Ngeti Dlamini, Tengetile Dlamini, whose mother and sister had her detained in order to force her to take HIV drugs, in spite of her robust health, which she had been maintaining for 8 years since her diagnosis. This sad serendipity allowed me to place my own domestic abuse within the larger context of Eswatini's lack of a human rights protection culture. Secondly, I am a mother of 2 children. Therefore, I have experienced the distress due to the primary health care program and other forms of extreme medical malpractice against my children firsthand. I am therefore keen to place myself on the front line of policy reform and activism where the protection of children's rights within the healthcare administration is concerned. These transformational events in my life mean that I have succeeded in turning my pain into a learning experience that can empower citizens across the world against tyrannical foreign affairs policy programs that might be harming their own lives and liberty. My war against domestic abuse is a microcosm of the collective war humans need to wage against corrupt governance globally.
There's a war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. A war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. Well, war from Boteca. Well, war from Boteca. Well, war from Boteca. Well, war from Boteca. There's a war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. A war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara.
What change do you hope to see from people listening to your talk? 150 words max. I hope to see my audience recognize the human rights violations outlined in the motivation behind my idea, and to take ownership of the civic and voter education programs of both Eswatini and the USA in a spirit of brotherhood and responsible global citizenship. Why is this an idea you'd like the world to hear about now? 500 words max. The unique source of the danger and repression identified in this idea is Eswatini's bilateral relations with the USA. When Ambassador Peterson presented her credentials to our head of state, the mandate of the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, was first priority on her agenda for her political term. This was despite Eswatini's national press reporting when Trump entered office that PEPFAR had been removed from the financial budget in the White House. Due to the lack of opportunities to report to the executive, legislative, and judiciary branches of our government, when citizens of Eswatini experience abusive health service on account of US donor organizations such as PEPFAR and USAID, there exists the problem of an information barrier between the voters in Eswatini and voters in the United States. US voters are therefore unable to act in a spirit of brotherhood towards Eswatini by advocating for our emancipation from despotic disease management policies from their embassy and its major financial stakeholders. History has demonstrated how the democratization of repressive forms of governance cannot take place in isolation. For example, the French and US national constitution documents echo each other's ethos of egalitarian progress, because the civil rights revolution in the one country emboldened the spirit of the other during that arc of time. Whereas information technology is more advanced now than in the 1700s, when the aforementioned world powers exchanged encouragement against political oppression, repression of the modern citizen's pan-national or global participation in foreign policy formulation is rather worse than ever. This prevents good citizenship and transformative electoral processes in donor countries like the USA within our bilateral relations. For example, US citizens are largely unaware that Eswatini was using forced psychiatric detention in 2014 to enforce adherence to a compulsory pharmaceutical regimen of HIV drugs prescribed arbitrarily by PEPFAR. I met one such victim of this human rights crime at Manzini Psychiatric Hospital. Secondly, there is no prior hypersensitivity testing of persons diagnosed with HIV in Eswatini so as to protect them from the debilitating or lethal side effects of these despotically prescribed drugs. The most vulnerable section of our population to this virtual biochemical warfare is that of infants and young children, whose parents are forced to subject them to this maladministration of supposed HIV prevention by means of the same drug prescriptions that overexert an adult's metabolism. The endangerment of Eswatini's babies and young children is further compounded by the absence of avenues to obtain legal medical exemption from our government's UN-recommended and US-funded primary healthcare program, which sees to the forced vaccination of infants upon birth, followed up by other homogeneously regimented vaccination dates in close succession. This makes it difficult to track the infant's physiological response to specific pharmaceutical products, while Eswatini's medical practitioners do not practice a culture of monitoring and documenting reports of side effects. Citizens of the USA can advocate for the restoration of Eswatini's sovereignty in protecting the right to life and autonomy for her presently endangered citizens. Anything else you would like to let us know? 150 words max. I have a good work ethic and willingness to learn, so I am keen to participate in this symposium for skills development, if nothing else.
There's a war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. A war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. Well, whoa, famboteca. Well, whoa, famboteca. Well, whoa, famboteca. Well, whoa, famboteca. There's a war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. A war we fight, the women here, the women in Sub-Sahara. Yeah. Whoa, famboteca. Well, whoa, famboteca. Well, whoa, famboteca. Well, whoa, famboteca. Well, whoa, famboteca. Going with the angels to take. Oh, I'm moving. Going with the angels to take.